Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We're broadcasting from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com. A new show is posted every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I could say that. New shows also appear on YouTube and numerous other media. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area. Questions and comments, you can send an email to bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. Lately, I've had people just sending text to those that I can answer at my leisure. That works out really well if you want to send a text to that number. If you leave contact information, I will respond by email, text, or telephone. Questions directed to our guests will be forwarded. And the background here is there are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, rarely covered by the mainstream media, so we always present a few for our listeners' education. Some are good shootings, some are questionable, but all are educational for firearms owners. Individual incidents are generally adjudicated under local law, so the advice offered here might not apply to listeners in different jurisdictions. The incidents are as reported, except as is Fired Up policy, we delete the names of those involved, be they victims or perps. We do put the names, usually the police officers reporting or the DAs reporting and so forth, in the article. And here we go. My guest today is retired police detective sergeant Michael Bunker. Mike, welcome to the show again. Would you give a little bit of your background?
Yes, I was in law enforcement for a total of 40 years. I was a detective sergeant. I handled almost all aspects of law enforcement, including patrol, the detective bureau, undercover work, and the arrest and prosecution of numerous subjects.
All right. That sounds exciting. Actually, it was.
It was at the time.
This first story is from WOIO TV 19, reported on the 6th of February this month. In Cleveland, city police responded to an In-N-Out beverage deli on Lakeview Road Tuesday at 8:40 p.m. on a report of a robbery at the Eastside convenience store. Witnesses told police that the two suspects entered with guns and attempted to rob the store. A 33-year-old employee and an 18-year-old suspect exchanged gunfire. No record really of who fired first. They're shooting at each other. Both suspects then fled on foot. The 18-year-old robber was eventually located on Kimberly Avenue. He was arrested and taken to university hospitals. He was treated for a gunshot wound to the neck sustained during that shootout. Police found the employee victim in the store. He was suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. Paramedics rushed the clerk to an area hospital where he died from that gunshot wound, unfortunately. As of this report, police are attempting to locate the second suspect in what now is a robbery murder. Unfortunately, this is a really common story. We do these all the time. Convenience stores, head shops, fast food places, they're constant robbery targets. Most often the value of the food or the phones or the drugs available they can steal is only worth a few $100s at most. I still don't understand why street punks risk their lives to steal such small amounts. Makes no sense to me, but I don't live in their world either. It makes less sense to defend something of that little value with a risk to your life. Obviously, it needs to be said, if you must get into a gunfight to save your life, of course, do that quickly and effectively. But if it's possible to call 911 and let the cops handle it, try to do that instead. Mike?
It's just ludicrous to risk your life to defend property that doesn't even belong to you if you're a store clerk. Help them carry the stuff out, for crying out loud, rather than get into a shootout with somebody where you are risking your life and this, unfortunately, the civil litigation that goes with the taking of somebody else's life, where the bad guy sues you and you have to defend yourself. It's just ludicrous to put yourself in that position for property.
And unfortunately, it's something we see every day. As I said earlier, if you need to defend your life or the life of others, that's your choice, and you need to act quickly and decisively if that's the case. If you can avoid it, I'm not speaking on let the criminals get away with it, but especially in the inner cities, the retaliation possible from gangsters, probable lawsuits, because those always come up. If those don't happen, it's still an interruption to years of your life till these cases go to court and the lawsuits are dismissed or settled or whatever. It generally just isn't worth trouble, and I get some flack on my emails about that I'm not telling people they should shoot bad guys if they need to. You should shoot bad guys if you need to. But if you don't have to, try to avoid it. That's just the experience. We're going to go on here to a report in a newsprint thing. Tulsa World reported on the 5th of this month, a few days ago, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's a surprise, the Tulsa World report. A man was shot in self-defense in a North Tulsa apartment complex. Tulsa police officers investigated the shooting outside of an apartment complex in the 3300 block of East Newton Street about 4 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Here, the suspect was reportedly drunk and got into an argument with a resident who was helping another resident move into a new Newton Manor apartment complex. These two guys one's helping the other move, their neighbors, and this third guy comes up. This suspect who came up, who was drunk, apparently threatened the second resident, who then went to his own apartment and retrieved a pistol. The drunk later reappeared with a baseball bat, hit the second resident's vehicle with it, and threatened the helpful neighbor again. Now, the neighbor reacts by firing a shot into the air and verbally warning the drunk to leave. That didn't work for whatever reason. The drunk decided to charge at this helpful neighbor with the bat. People do that. They don't always obey warnings, and even warnings with a gunshot in the air to get their attention. As he charged the helpful neighbor, the combative drunk was shot by the neighbor in the right forearm. The only damage apparently was a grazing wound. The drunk was taken by ambulance to Oklahoma State University Medical Center and was reported in good condition. That sounds all normal, but here's the kicker on this one. The shooter, the helpful neighbor, reported left the scene before officers arrived, but later contacted police and returned to the scene. He was then arrested on a complaint of a felon in possession of a firearm. Sergeant Tim Lewandowski said he did not expect any charges against the helpful neighbor felon for the shooting because it appeared that was justified. When the aggressive drunk is released from the hospital, he will likely be arrested on a complaint of assault. No ages were listed on any of their police reports I pulled on this so far anyway, which is the one thing we're missing to look at age and agility and so forth between the players here. I've seen this type of thing several times over the years where a prohibited person, somebody who's not allowed to possess firearms for whatever reason, grabs a gun to defend others from injury or death. Usually it's forgiven by the courts. They look at it and say, well, you did a good thing. This case is a little different. It was the gun the guy had his own gun, the felon. So the question is a little bit different. In defending somebody, he found himself charged as a felon in possession. I know, Mike, you and I have been involved on the edges of several of these, and one came to mind that's somebody we both knew that got into a hassle. He was an ex-police officer and was a felon. He couldn't have guns. And where he was working as an unarmed security guard, somebody drove a truck into the place and started literally running over people. And the ex-cop, now felon, went and got a pistol that was in somebody else's storage locker, one of the armed guards, and shot the guy and was able to save unknown lives. And they basically went, okay. In this case, the guy didn't borrow somebody else's gun. Apparently it was his gun.
That's the problem. He knows he's not supposed to have the firearm. That's painfully clear in all jurisdictions that I know of in the United States. And he clearly had it for himself. Of course, then you get into the whole problem of there are felonies and there are felonies. In some jurisdictions, you have felonies A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way down the line. And some of them can be as mundane as possession of a stolen car parked in your driveway and you knew the car that was there. You weren't driving the car, but you knew it was there. Therefore, you had possession of it. I'm oversimplifying it, but there are a variety of felonies that are of greater and lesser importance. You've got robberies, you've got rapes, murders, but then you have a whole group of other felonies. And you can defend yourself. Just because you're a felon doesn't mean you can't defend yourself, but you aren't supposed to have a firearm.
This is going to be a tough case to adjudicate. As Mike said, there are felonies and there's felonies. If this is a really serious felony, a murder or batteries or numerous felonies, they're probably going to prosecute the guy anyway.
Yeah, and he could go back to prison. If he is on probation or parole, he could go back and serve the remainder of the sentence for whatever crime he did, even though he was defending himself against imminent danger and a threat of great bodily harm, perhaps death.
This is why we have prosecutor discretion and why we have juries. If it gets to the actual court, the jury can look at this and go, I'm sorry, that's just not a crime. And you can't argue the law. You can't tell the jury to nullify a verdict like that. And they will be told, if this goes to trial, over and over, you got to apply the law. But we never know. Anyway, we're going to take a break here in just a moment for a word from a sponsor or two. And we will be back in about 2 minutes or so, I think. So don't go away. Our new Fired Up logo merchandise is available online at firedupwithboberwinstore.com. We have our orange camo pattern shirts, as you can see here. We have orange camo pattern hats, baseball type hats. We have our famous Aussie button up on the side hats, all of which are available. The men's tees now come in small, medium, large, extra large, 2XL, and 3XL just in. We have the hats are available. The Aussie hats are in size small, medium, large, and extra large. That is 7, 7.25, 7.5, 7 3/4 to us Americans. We also have our Pink Ladies tank tops in small, medium, large, extra large, and 2XL. And of course, my book, The Reality of Armed Self-Defense. We accept credit and debit cards, PayPal, and just about every other payment method known to man on that site. It's being handled by a contractor who does all that for us. So I am inviting you to look onto our website, add the word store, and you will find all this stuff for sale, which will help support Fired Up. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Creed and I'm a gun trust attorney. If you want to own an NFA firearm, a gun trust is a great way to own it because it allows multiple people to lawfully possess a firearm instead of just a single individual. I have reviewed lots of gun trusts and I have found they often don't include the forms you need to bring people on as trustees and remove them as trustees. In addition, a gun trust will save you the cost of probate and avoid probate, and it can protect your executor and family members. You know, there isn't an element of intent in these laws that affect the NFA firearm possession. So it doesn't matter if your wife didn't intend to sell the gun at a garage sale or yard sale, or your daughter didn't intend to drive the car with the silencer in the trunk. A gun trust is a great way to protect your family members and friends and share in the fun and pleasure of owning NFA weapons. If you want a gun trust done right, remember to trust Jerry.
Hi, I'm Bob Irwin, and I get to do my own commercial. The short version is I've had 50 years experience in firearms, firearm repair, firearm design, 30,000 CCW holders I personally taught, 20,000 security officers, etc. Taught in 28 police academies, firearms and use force. I've also appeared more than 200 times in gun-related cases in federal, state, and local court. I wrote this book, The Reality of Armed Self-Defense, because it answers virtually all the questions that I get every time I talk to people, answers questions that come in the emails. It will tell you what you need to know to keep yourself out of prison if you get involved in a self-defense shooting case, keep from losing your house in a civil lawsuit. There are lots of things I've learned over these years and watched people make a lot of mistakes. This book will save you a lot. If you purchase one, read through it, I'm sure you will find it enlightening. And it'll save me a lot of time on these shows trying to explain to people what they did wrong and what they shouldn't have done and so forth and so on. So you can buy it by sending me the funds at the address below, bob@firedupmail.com, or leave a message on my phone number there, which is 702-257-1060. I will return your calls and tell you where to mail the money and so forth and so on. They're available on my website also, which is attached to this regular show. Cost is $15. I said add for postage if you live outside the immediate 50 states, and I will get it to you first class mail. Thank you for listening. This book will save you a lot of hassle. Thanks. And we are back. This last case for the show comes from the Nashville Tennessean. It was reported on the 5th of February, 2019 in Nashville, Tennessee. Can you believe that? Metro Police in Nashville said a would-be robber was shot earlier this week outside an Antioch apartment complex, according to a police spokesman. His name is Don Aaron. A 25-year-old woman told police that it was about 9:30 p.m. She was walking to her Baker Station apartment when a stranger, later identified as a local 19-year-old, ran up behind her and grabbed her purse. Pretty common event. The woman said as she resisted and screamed, the thief grabbed her and started bashing her head into the wall of the building. So we now have gone from a purse snatch to a violent robbery. The woman's 29-year-old husband heard the screams, came out of their apartment. The husband then jumped over a porch railing and landed on top of the 19-year-old suspect. After the struggle between the two men, the would-be robber got up and then ran toward the parking lot. The husband followed him, and the two got into a second fight in which the criminal hit the husband in the head and then got up. They were on the ground at the time. Not knowing his opponent's next move, the husband then pulled a gun out of his pocket and opened fire. Several rounds hit the attacker, who ran to a silver Acura and fled the scene of the apartment complex. He was dropped off a short time later at TriStar Southern Hills Medical Center and later transferred to Vanderbilt University Medical Center in critical condition. He appears at this moment he's going to survive. The police say the man's wife was treated, the original victim, at Summit Medical Center for cuts and bruises to her head. Whoever dropped him off at the hospital left the Acura. Detectives continue to investigate the case as of last report. It turns out, just a little more information, the Acura was stolen, the car, about 90 minutes before the attempted robbery or the attempted murder, whatever this could be charged as, a lot of things. The keys were left in the vehicle and it has since been recovered. What we have here, Mike, it appears, is a guy using deadly force against an unarmed attacker.
You could make that case,
But
but, you know, the set of circumstances are that a case could be made that the husband was chasing the individual because he had already committed a felony and he was in fear that in running to the parking lot, he was going to the car to get a weapon or something to come back and continue the altercation or the theft. The purse snatch gravitated from larceny from person to strong arm robbery when violence was being used. If the purse was merely jerked away from the woman, that's larceny from person in most cases. When you use physical force to take the item, that becomes strong arm robbery. Probably there's a good case for the husband walking away from shooting the guy without much trouble. However, there's a very large potential for civil litigation where the bad guy who was committing the felony says, I was fleeing the scene, I was no longer the aggressor, and he attacked me. I am now the victim, and he shot me. We have seen that here, particularly where we had one case where a man went to his door. He was a very paranoid man for reasons we can't discuss. Two guys are at the door to collect a debt. They kick down the door. He meets them, shoots one guy in the doorway, and he dies there. He then chases the other guy for 2 blocks, shoots and kills him. He then goes to jail for murder. It gets complicated.
it really depends on who supplied the force and when they applied it and what was going on at that moment in view of what had just happened. It's a part of a continuing case. That's why this case will probably end up in front of a jury that I hopefully will side with the husband in this case. I would think so. You can check out our recent shows at firedupwithboberwin.com. It contains recent shows with older shows being added. There's 15 or 18 shows up now, I believe. The commercials keep us on the air, so please patronize our sponsors, particularly the Fired Up Store website. We'll be back next Thursday on our website and on YouTube at the American Guns and Glory Network. Remember, you can watch anything you're watching on this. It's on a lot of media that I don't even know exists. They just put it up because we let anybody do that. You can hit subscribe wherever you see it, and the shows will automatically be sent to your computer or your cell phone every Thursday, a little after 5 p.m. Pacific time. Please share this broadcast with your friends. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back again next week. Next week is Valentine's Day. We'll be back on Valentine's Day with a new show. Thanks for watching.